Alright guys, welcome back for another build video. Today we're going to be looking at Viessa for the newest content in the first Descendant, particularly Season 3, Episode 2. You can use this in both dungeons. You'll actually be able to use it in everything in the game that you want to use Viessa for. I actually have two separate builds for us. One that I used if you have a good Ancestor mod. I definitely think it's better. And then the other one's a budget version that you can use just for general use to get you started on Viessa. Both are very good. Both are very useful builds. So to kick things off, what you might notice is I'm using cohesion. For Viessa, people do not normally use this mod, but with her recent buffs, she gets some more crit rate by default. And with an Ancestor mod, we can really take advantage of this. Using this will change her 4 ability to a fusion. You may notice that's highlighted green. That is the only difference. It also gives you 5 little ice spheres that follow her instead of 3. The other benefit of this is the ice shackle effect will slow enemies down if it does not kill them. That might not sound super important, but on certain enemies, especially like your yellow bar elites, this is actually pretty clutch, especially the ones that hit hard really fast. And in these new dungeons, you actually have quite a few of these, so slowing them down also slows down their attacks and can help keep you alive. For the mods themselves, we are going to run field concentration, for emergency measures, and front lines. This is for crit rate and crit damage. The cooldowns we're going to be running is the classic focus on fusion, focus on chill, MP conversion, nimble fingers. We are going to be running skill expansion for some range. For damage purposes, we'll get into this in a second, we have speed dominator, which is going to work with our trigger mod. And then we have for our ancestor mod, fusion ratio, crit damage, and crit rate. What you really want for this build in particular is crit rate and crit damage. The fusion ratio is just a little added bonus. This is a very nice mod, and if you could pull something similar, that would be really, really, really good. Looking at the trigger mod, we will be using this for both builds. Relative speed, it's somewhat new. If you don't know what this does, when you build 30 stacks by slowing targets down by using your slow abilities, which is all of Viessa's, by the way, you gain a really powerful bonus blast damage. You might see it in the gameplay here and there when you hit a weak point. It does a big AoE burst of damage. The damage is based off of your skill power and your max MP. Viessa has a lot of max MP. This build in particular has just shy of the cap of the most damage that this thing can do. Clears rooms for you very easily if you can hit your shots. It's actually amazing, and this is quickly become one of my favorite trigger mods. The speed dominator mod that we're running with this will give you more skill power modifier, which we don't totally care about. But what we do care about is it adds skill critical hit damage while this is active. And as long as you're building stats, it stays active. So it is a very, very, very good combination for crit descendants. All right, for the tools of this build, we're actually going to go over 2 things. First is the reactor. Very simple, because everything's fusion now. You want skill critical hit damage. You want skill cooldown on a chill fusion reactor. The component set that I went with, and you do have a couple options here, but I'll explain why we went with this route, is the hunter set. We want the 4% skill cooldown to help get our 4 out as much as possible, and we also want the MP recovery bonuses that come with this. If you don't know how it works, when you're below 50% MP, you get a bonus effect. It's like a ring that glows around you, and when you take damage, it replenishes your MP. It's very, very good. You are a little bit squishy. There's only 1 HP piece here, but for your rolls, you want max HP, MP recovery out of combat, MP recovery in combat, max MP, MP recovery modifier, defense, and on this piece, the processor, you kind of do whatever you want. I do item acquisition and shield recovery, but probably should do max shield and then shield recovery modifier. Your other option are the same rolls on there, but with the bravery set. The bravery set, if you don't know what this does, as you get kills, it will reduce a random skill's cooldown by 1 second each time. The trade-off for this is you have almost no HP to save you. It is a very, very squishy setup. I do prefer this, but I found the survivability of it not necessarily being worth it. In solo play and group play, though, this is definitely what I go to. But my base recommendation is going to be the 4-piece hunter set. For our weapon, we're going to go with Blue Beetle. If you don't know what this does, is while it's in your hands, if you use a fusion ability, it gives you a 115% more crit rate, which on Viessa is a lot. maybe another 20% or so. This is how we're going to push past our up to our 100% crit rate with this build specifically. I don't really have any other weapon that I would use in my hand. It's also pretty decent for hitting those weak points to trigger the trigger mod. So this is all around a really good weapon. The mods on it do not matter. If you wanted something for a magazine size, you could put something on there for that. But the rolls on this is I just want sprint speed to move around faster. But you're really just using this for the stat stick of the bonus crit rate. Arcade tuning, we're gonna have a little bit of leeway here on what you want to do. I personally ran with the 2 HP mods here. If you wanted to switch these to MP recovery, this does help, especially with the hunter set, get your MP back because you're going to be skill spamming. You are going to follow this route. You're going to get a little bit of range to top off your range extension to get as much range as you can on this kind of budget that we have here. You're going to go up to the cooldown because we really need the cooldown. You're going to get the crit rate and crit damage stuff because this is a crit build. You're going to come up this way, and then we're going to go to the new mutant cell called Steady Hands. What this does is you get skill critical hit damage on your flow abilities on enemies affected by frostbite. I don't know if this is intentional at the time of making the video. This does work with Viessa's ice shackles. I've tested it thoroughly to make sure it does work on her ice shackles, even though it doesn't say frostbite. So this is definitely worth slotting in here for this build. The budget build that I'd be using if you're relatively new to Viessa and you're just getting her started, we're going to be using Absolute Zero as her Transcendent mod. This gives her a little bit more extra crit rate on her base kit, as well as gives her abilities. They all get changed to singular, so we got to keep that in mind. Everything else is the same. You don't get the 5 ice spears, you only get 3 with this. And you also lose ice shackles for frostbite, which is like a worse version of ice shackles. Still kind of useful, still really good. Some mod differences here is we're going to be running increased HP if you want this to be a little bit more tankier. I would switch this out in the future if you want to maintain Absolute Zero with either Frontlines or possibly your Ancestor mod. We will be running Skill Insight, Emergency Measures to help get our crit rate up to that 100%. And everything else is the exact same compared to the other build. Speed Dominator in combination with Relative Speed. The tools are going to be a little bit different because everything's changed to singular. You're going to be using a singular skill cooldown, crit damage reactor, also chill. This is what you're going to get the most benefit out of. I do run the bravery set with all the same roles, that max HP, MP recovery, max MP, defense, recovery modifier, shield recovery, and item acquisition with as much HP as possible on there. This giving you the 1 second cooldown on your abilities while you're ability spamming. Since you're using all 4 abilities, it's just really clutch, and having that HP mod makes this a little bit more viable to use rather than not. Like you can see, I'm almost at 10,000 HP as it is. So I think this is better with Absolute Zero than Hunter, but you can still use Hunter if you want to use that instead. For the weapon with this version of Viessa, we're going to go with Secret Garden. The reason for this is strictly because of the 3 sprint speed cores that you can slot on this thing, and the fact that you're still going to need to hit headshots with a weapon to trigger the relative speed damage burst, and you can hit headshots pretty easy with this to be doing that AoE damage on our trigger mod. So it's a pretty good slot for this build. With this version of Viessa, our arcade board is going to look a little different. It's very similar, but we have a little bit more freedom here because you don't need these crit rates to reach 100%. This right here pushes us just to 100% crit rate. So you're still going to follow the path just as before. You're going to get the crit or the skill power, the skill cooldown, the crit damage, just a little bit of crit rate, the range down here, the MP recovery, the HP recover, or the HP increase. And then for the mutant cell, we're still running Steady Hands for that crit damage because all of our abilities are still slow and they all still apply frostbite, so you're getting that crit damage increase. For both builds, you'll be using the same inversion reinforcement. I personally think this inversion reinforcement this season is kind of weak. I like Adrenaline Surge over RK Circulation Tactic, but you do have freedom here if you will get rid of that. For this, for a little bit extra cooldown, you can. It's just temporary. I like the movement speed myself, though, so I run Adrenaline Surge, but you can use whichever one you like. We are naturally going to be using selective neurostimulation. This gives you MP recovery every 45 seconds, which is super important. And then finally, deployed hardened shell. As you take damage, you get damage resistance this just keeps stacking as long as you're taking damage. It's useful. It's nice. I notice when I don't have it versus when I do have it. I do think this is something not a lot of people are using. You probably should. It's like a little more than 10% skill or damage reduction just from your inversion reinforcement. So final thoughts of the builds before we go. I am a big fan of both builds. I actually use these builds quite actively in my streams and my gameplay. You can use this in all content. You can use this in the 400s. You can use this in the 2 mega dungeons. You can use this in the void vessels. It's definitely one of my favorite more fun ways of playing. I did experiment with some veteran tactics. It's just too inconsistent. If you were thinking maybe that was a good idea, that was popular for a minute, but back then veteran tactics behaved differently than it does now. Absolute Zero has been like kind of the dominant thing, but I do believe with the ancestor mods, it's better to start moving away from that. It just sucks being dependent on that. If you guys have any questions, comments, ideas, or thoughts at all, please drop a comment down below. Consider liking the video if you found any of this interesting or useful. Consider subscribing to the channel. Help us grow. Any support is appreciated. Any feedback is appreciated. If there's something you guys would like to see in the future, please feel free to ask for it, and I will do my best to get that to you. But if that is it, I hope you all have a good start to the new year and enjoy your time in the first Descendant.